Well, turning now to our continuing coverage of the Dante Lucas murder trial. The trial could last into early March, as we've been telling you. Our Colette Borderlawn on her way to the courtroom this morning and joins us live on the telephone. Colette, tell us what we learned last week in the opening of this trial.
Good morning, Ira. What many people may remember from last week was lots of witness testimony. One that kind of stood out was a former inmate of Lucas who claims that Lucas at one point told him he'll never be convicted in this case because they'll never find a body. But I don't want that to overshadow the tons of emotional testimony. The first witness that was called to the stand was Laura Saxton, Schelling's own mom. Several of Schelling's friends took the stand. They all talked about what kind of a person she was. They say she was bubbly, outgoing. Her mom says when they went and checked her apartment, Schelling disappeared on February 4th, 2013. Whenever they went to the apartment in the days following, they say nothing was disturbed. It didn't look like any clothes had been taken. Her toothbrush was there. I do believe that this line of questioning was to lay the foundation for the prosecution. They came out in opening statements and said, this is not a missing persons case. This is a homicide case. With their questioning, they are trying to prove to the jury that Schelling indeed is deceased and did not just disappear.
Well, as we know, certainly the fact that her body has not been found, that's a big problem here. But there was some cell phone evidence that was introduced last week. What did that show, Colette?
That's right, and it could seem kind of confusing, so I'm just going to hit the bullet points here. Basically, what we know from those cell phone tower records is that Schelling's phone did indeed make it to Pueblo at around 10 p.m. on the night of February 4th in 2013. We know that she and Lucas's phones were communicating a lot with each other that evening. We know Lucas called his mom at around 11 p.m. We know Lucas also called Schelling twice right before 4 a.m. But the big thing to keep in mind, their phones were generally overlapping in the same areas when they were communicating. Their phones never left Pueblo. And then Schelling's ultimately went dark or never connected to the network again on the morning of February 7th.
Well, what do we expect today as we get back to another week of trial? What are you looking for today, Colette?
For sure. Well, on Friday afternoon, the last witness to take the stand was Agent Kevin Torres of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. He was the main investigator on this case. He's the man who alleged back in May of 2018 that Lucas lured Schelling down to Pueblo and strangled her, which would explain the lack of a murder weapon in this case. However, we didn't hear about that on Friday afternoon. Really, the prosecution just had him reading some text messages between Schelling and Lucas that were from February 3rd, the day before she disappeared, that do appear to show Lucas trying to get Schelling to come down to Pueblo. So I expect to hear a lot more testimony from him today, maybe some more detail into his theory. Also on Friday, the prosecution mentioned that if they got through Agent Torres, we would also be hearing from Schelling's father and brother. So I expect them both to take the stand as well. Follow our updates on Twitter. No live reporting in the courtroom, no cameras allowed, but we will have all of that information for you on KOAA.